Welcome to Lead with Hope with Brandy Kelly, the podcast where we explore the power of hope, leadership, and resilience in today's world. Each week, we'll bring you stories, insights, and actionable advice from leaders, innovators, and change makers. So let's dive in and discover how you can lead with hope.
Today, I'll be talking to Kip Shubert about his story and how he leads with hope. Kip Shubert is a seasoned speaker, educator, school counselor, and coach with over 3 decades of experience. With his empowering style, Kip helps people with their struggles and turns them into strengths, their very own secret sauce, which then becomes their superpower in achieving success for students and staff. Kip currently lives in the mountains of Colorado with his wife, Cindy. Welcome, Kip.
Thanks, Brandy, for having me on.
So, Kip, let's start off by you just sharing your story about us. Why did you become an educator? Who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Well, I live in Colorado. My wife Cindy just moved here 2 years ago. We grew up together in the same town and had lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma area our entire life. And during COVID, we started asking ourselves this question: is like, what are we doing? Are we just living and working to pay bills until we get too old to really retire and enjoy it? Or, let's live big. And so we decided we were always going to, when we retired, we were going to move up into the mountains of Colorado. And so when we hit that point, we just decided, you know what, why wait? Let's just sell our house and let's just go. And just went on a big adventure. And so we've been here, again, like I said, 2 years, and this is my 32nd year in education. And so how I got into it is I kind of fell backwards into it, really. I was a soccer player in high school and got recruited to play in college. And so that's what I was going to go to college to do, was to play soccer. And you had to declare a major in something when you got there. I didn't go to get an education. I went to play. And I asked around some of the other athletes and like, what's the easiest thing to do? And they said, well, do PE. That's what we do. And so I just, I get into education and got a degree as a PE and health teacher. Ended up actually teaching social studies for most of my career. But I kind of fell back into it, but it was really where I belonged. It fell right into with my natural just gifts and abilities to relate to people and to young people. And so it may be something I wasn't looking for, but I think God had a plan for me and made sure those doors were open. And even though I maybe didn't know it at the time, I was where I was supposed to be. And so I've just been trying to perfect that for really the last 10 years of my career. The first, 20 or so was just a struggle for me. I really thought that I was an educator to achieve something for myself. And even though I knew that I could connect and I made a difference and all that kind of business that we say and what we do, I thought that was somehow supposed to make me somebody. And that would make me feel whole and complete and like I had found some sort of success. And so, I know we've talked before and so, the addiction part of my story but I was about a 25-year alcoholic and hit rock bottom about at 46. And when I was in rehab, I had lost my home and my car, and somehow by the grace of God, I kept my teaching credentials. But when I lost my custody and all rights to my youngest child, who was 6 at the time, that's what really woke me up. And so ever since then, it's almost been 10 years now. And so ever since then, it's just like that light bulb flipped on, that what we do and what I do in my life wasn't about me. It was about how I could use it to impact others. And once that flipped on, losing Camden was the catalyst for me to understand that I had to get better, and I had to reclaim my life, not for me, but for her. And so that's kind of something now that I do as an educator, as a coach, as a speaker, as a podcast host, as an author. It's not about me. It's about making an impact with my story and in my life, so that others can find the success and avoid the same pitfalls that I fell into.
Kip, your story is so powerful. I think the vulnerability of your story, just that level of vulnerability you go to in being so honest and so transparent in what you have went through and using that to impact others. It's truly a powerful purpose. And that's the whole purpose behind the Lead with Hope system. That's a system of self-efficacy. And the only way we get to that is if we self-reflect and we become self-aware and then find those ways to maximize our purpose and our potential. And that is in helping others. So thank you for sharing that. Now, as I said, we all need hope in this life. I mean, that's a powerful thing, but hope without action is just wishful thinking. So what actions or habits do you engage in order to reach your fullest potential?
Yeah, it's funny how we learn those through our adversity. That's where most people they don't understand the action behind the hope and making those hopes, those dreams, those wishes come to fruition. It's all about action steps. And again, like I said, I had to learn that from a place of rock bottom, because until I understood that things weren't about me. I always had, even when I was drinking in the last part of my addiction, I mean, it was bad and it was every day. I tried to commit suicide. My family, and I don't blame them now. I hated them at the time for doing it, but they put me in a psych ward. And it was like a nut house. And I was like, I don't belong here. It's like, and it just made me more angry. I remember on the ride home, when you, I guess, graduated out of there. Well, I don't know how to put it, but they found, I remember one of the nurses like, you don't belong here. It's not, you have an addiction issue. It's not, but they do that for every suicide attempt, I think. And, I remember on the way home, they take you in an ambulance. And so I didn't have a car or anything. So they was taking me to where I was staying, and I made the ambulance guy stop at a 7-Eleven, and I bought two cases of beer and a carton of cigarettes because I was so mad. I didn't go back to work after that for about a month until I ended up in rehab. But man, it's when you get to those places and you realize that everything that's happening to you and around you is not just because of other people. I had to really reflect and see, Kip, yeah, there's some things that have gone wrong in your life that weren't in your control, but all this stuff, you have to take ownership of it and start doing the steps to get out of that. You can't just say, I want to be sober or I want to get clean, and then things are all easy, because it's not been easy. Today, it's a lot easier than it was in the very beginning, but I had to start to learn those action steps and things, and that started right away in rehab when I finally learned, and I hit that rock bottom place. And so some of the things I learned then, I still do today. And so it's one for me is journaling. It's a thing that I do each morning, and I have in the back of my journal I have a list of goals. And so I read those to myself every morning, and then I have a bunch of self-affirmation things and some verses, Bible verses that I read. But I read those aloud, and it's early in the morning, and sit down by myself and do that. And then I flip back to whatever the day is, and I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. Because when we focus on what we have instead of what we don't, it makes it a lot easier to grab a hold of that hope. And then I just write. It's kind of like a prayer in a way. But I just begin to write, and just what I'm going to do that day, what my big win is going to be. So I'm setting small goals on top of, on top of goals, and just journaling and doing those affirmations and those gratitude statements in the morning is one thing that really helps me stay kind of at peace and focused on what my job is, and who it's about, and that it's not about me, and why we're here. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing. And the second thing is that concept of one day at a time. I think we get so caught up, especially as educators, and even in my district here, it's just the political mess and the noise around our profession. And when you just focus on what's at hand that day, it doesn't seem too overwhelming, and you can stay focused on what you're doing. But it took me about a year into recovery. I was about a year sober, sitting in an AA meeting, and they always, one day at a time. It was just all these stupid sayings I heard all the time. And I don't know, I can't remember actually what was said, but somebody was sharing something, and it really clicked for me that focus on today. You're not guaranteed tomorrow, and make a difference today. And so there's things that I have, I do checklists that are very helpful for me. It's just, and again, it's just focusing all my energy on how I can make a difference and impact people today. Because today, whether it's this, whether it's later on, whether I go to the football game tonight and see a kid that comes up to me to talk or whatever, there's an interaction or something today that someone is going to remember about me for the rest of their lives. And so every interaction is so important. And if I'm worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or Sunday when I have to go to the seeding meeting for the state tournament, or how I'm going to do practice next week and the playoffs start Wednesday, if I'm all worried about that, or Cindy's radiation that she has to go to today, and tomorrow and the next 3 weeks, it just gets so overwhelming. And so I just laser focus in on taking care of today. Tomorrow will get here when it gets here. And so you just break. It's kind of like when I sit in 504 meetings and do IEPs and all those kind of things, and we talk about chunking for students and making it into smaller pieces. And that's kind of what it's like. And so those are some things that really help me kind of stay engaged in thinking about how to tap into my fullest potential.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, that really hits on the next question, which is all about mindset, having that optimistic outlook and that focus on gratitude is something that really affects our mindset. So talk to me a little bit about how your optimistic outlook affects the lives of those you lead.
Yeah. To me, mindset is everything. I can reflect back on my life, and whether it was when I was playing soccer in college or in the pro ranks, when I got into education, or even in my addiction. It's just what I believed, what I spoke, and what I did was the direction that I went. And that's kind of when I'm speaking to groups, or especially athletic groups, it's just, that mindset is what we believe, what we speak, what we do. And that's the direction we're going to go. That's what we're going to become. And so, it's very important that we always see the good. And that's one thing I tell, if I'm counseling kids in here in my office, or speaking to my teams, or to groups of teachers, or a whole school district, or whatever it is, or on my podcast. It's just all about finding the good in everything, because there always is. And you've got to train yourself to do that, because it's human nature to see the negative and to see what's wrong. If you walk into any situation, or with any person anywhere, in the first minute, you're going to be able to find something wrong if you want to. And so it takes work, to see the good. And I credit Darren Peppert a lot with that. It's one of his big things is why can't we focus on what they're doing right instead of what they're doing wrong? And so it's just all about seeing the good. And again, it just takes training to do that. And when you're optimistic, and again, to be a bit authentic here, it's not easy to do that. I have people all the time like, how are you always so positive? And it's like, sometimes I want to throat punch them. It's like, if you only knew, it takes work, and it's not a fake facade or anything, but it's just something you really have to work at, because we all experience that negativity and that adversity and those obstacles. And again, it's human nature to go through the negative route and see what's wrong. And it's just constant training. And there are days where I just want to go, you know what? I just want to say F it and
Mhm.
just complain and bitch and moan. But then again, I have to think, who's that going to benefit? You know, it might benefit my ego a little bit, to be at a pity party, but it's a pity party of one. And so you've got to get out of that, because it's who's it serving? It's not about me. And again, it's just um, training your mind to do that on a daily basis, one day at a time. And when you can get that mindset and that positive outlook, others around you are going to feed off of that. And it's just, if you lead with positivity, the groups around you are going to be positive. There's going to be always those outliers that are negative, and those are people that you have to put boundaries in place for. But they're going to rise to those expectations, and they're going to do what they see. And if you're a negative leader and you're always focusing on what's wrong and then everyone else is going to be scared. They're going to be scared to screw up. They're going to be afraid to take risks. They're going to be worried about getting fired. They're always going to be worried and negative. And so you can't create a positive culture and a thriving culture with that negative mindset and outlook. And so it has a great effect on those that you lead by how you look at things, because they're going to follow what you do.
Absolutely.
They're going to become that mindset until they can find the
Mhm.
right, and so
Yeah,
it's real important.
absolutely. And I totally agree with you that what you focus on, you grow. And it's contagious if you are positive. And sometimes it's small things. It's just the smile. You smile at somebody you see in the hallway, and the next thing you know, when you see them the next time, they've got a smile on their face. So we've got to be intentional about that, and train our minds to um, focus on what we want to multiply.
That's reality. That's How many times do we pass coworkers and staff and students and people in the hall, and every day it's like, how you doing? Good. How are you? Good. It's like
Hmm.
the same standard. And I heard this summer at the Jocelyn's Renaissance National Convention. Can't remember the guy's name, but he was talking about every time he gets that interaction, when they ask him how he's doing, he says better than good, and they're like, whoa, and it creates conversation. But I there's I've made some, and I don't know if it was on a podcast or just a post or something, but about that very thing, when we pass people in the hallways, to take the time to actually authentically interact with someone, because what are we going to say? How you doing? Good. I'm good. What are you going to say? Oh, I'm terrible. It's just, or
Right.
just take the time to have those authentic conversations with people. And it's about building those relationships. And it does take intentionality to do that, because we're so
Yeah.
used to getting caught up in the routine and we miss it. How many of those people that we walk by that say, oh, I'm good, and maybe they're not good. And if you just take
Hmm.
the time to say, hey, I'm here, or care, love you, whatever it is, the smile,
Hmm. Yeah.
maybe they come back and say, hey, man, do you have a minute? And maybe that changes their day.
Absolutely. And I know you and I have this in common. One of the things that we're pretty passionate about is building relationships, being intentional in building those relationships, connecting with other human beings. But tell me more about your purpose and your passion, how you see it.
You know, see it it's back up here on my wall. But purpose is just to lead and to love others, to believe and discover that they're the greatest miracle in the world. That's my passion. And it chokes me up or brings that emotion every single time. Because I remember when I heard that for the first time. And it was the day after I learned, that I'd lost Camden in rehab. And that night, I had made the decision I was going to leave and just finally go attempt suicide and be good at it. At least I could be successful at that. Um, but my counselor there, her name's Christy Hamner, and we're still close to this day. they had me read a book by Og Mandino called The Greatest Miracle in the World. And so there's this one thing that she, told me. She goes, Kip, you have so much to live for, but you have to understand that you are the greatest miracle in the world. And so I had to carry around this, I don't know, it's probably a 4-foot stuffed dog. She made me carry it around for a whole week. And if I don't ever hope anybody goes to rehab, but if you are, it's full of pranksters and people that are, it's just, we're not in a good place. And so, but I was to hold on to that dog and protect it and take care of it for the entire week. And there were only 2 times that I lost it. Cause I left it alone for like 30 seconds and it ended up in the girl's bathroom, or it ended up in the kitchen somewhere. But I didn't really understand it at the time. But what I was learning is I was taking care of that dog, but that dog was me. And to be able to be, that purposeful, passionate person for everybody else, I had to take care of me first, and not in a selfish way, but I had to get right. Right. And so now that I've learned that and still learning that today, it's just something that I have to give away. And it's just, and again, I think it goes back to understanding why we're here. We're here to connect. We're here to build relationships. We're here to impact people. And it's not about me and how many books I sell, or how many people download my podcast, or how many times I come to speak. And I'm going to come speak at your place. I'm going to do that. You're going to have me there. I'm going to have to pay for it.
Absolutely.
But it's not about the money. It's not about that. It's about how can we make each other better, because we are better together. And
Oh, yeah.
I think, I've been to hell and back several times, and it's just, and I think there's so many people in our profession, and I know that we see them. And if you're listening to this, if you're an educator, I know you see these kids every single day, and you have no idea what a lot of them are going through, but they are facing hell. And what we teach them, the content and the grades and the GPA and all that, and the graduation, that's great. But if we don't prepare them and get to know them and believe in them and instill that hope in them, what does it matter anyway? They've got to understand the relationship piece and why they're here, and that they're to impact people as well, and they're important, and that they're the greatest miracle in the world. And to me, that's the most rewarding thing that I can do as an educator, is when I get those messages on Facebook or emails or phone calls or texts from kids that I had in class, and I was struggling so bad that I made a difference. And so, that we don't do it for the money, for sure. So it's just,
Right.
that's why we do what we do. And I think not often enough we don't reflect on that. And we need to get back to understanding why we're in it. And if you're in this profession for, the summer breaks and the holiday breaks and all that business, then you're in the wrong job. Get out, because you're hurting kids. Kids need you. And the positions that we're in with the administration and all those kind of things, our staff need us. So that, because there's so many teachers that are struggling and facing things, and a lot of times people around them don't even know it. And the more we can just connect and fill each other with passion, fill each other's buckets, just the better off our world's going to be.
Yeah, we are better together. And like you said, our kids need hope. Our teachers need hope. And I think that if we can rally around each other and give them that message, what you just said, in terms of, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. We need to take care of ourselves. We can't pour from an empty cup. We all hear that, but that story you just shared really puts a fine point on the importance of taking care of yourself. In the midst of adversity, especially, most of us face adversity in this life. I've shared with you about my story, the tragedy in my life, but not everybody has a tragedy. Most of us have an adversity. Tell us about how adversity has helped you to lead with hope.
It's those, when a seed's planted in the ground, it's underground, it's dark, stuff on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to push through, to have that seed, germinate and start to grow. And from what I've been through, I now know that it's an opportunity for growth, that adversity. And I think with being able to I would encourage people to be as authentic and vulnerable as they possibly can, to not just step outside the box, but to blow the damn thing up and to just be you. I don't, it's so weird that, like the story I was sharing, I get choked up again. But it's 10 years ago. And it doesn't matter how I share it or where I share it, whether it's with you, whether it's with my team as we prepared for our last game this week. I mean, or if I'm speaking to a group of people or just my wife, I get choked up every single time. And that's the emotion and the passion,
Mm-hmm.
in what we do. But being able to share your story with others and then earning the right to hear theirs, that's what allows you to lead with hope and to kind of, give back that hope that you've been given to other people. And some people may say, well, like you said, me and you have had some tragedies, and some other people may think their life's pretty good and they really haven't had any tragedies, but you still have a story and there's still adversity, even if it's just, sharing how you're so overwhelmed with family and finances and trying to make ends meet, and you struggle with, how are you going to get to the next day, because there's kids or staff in your building that are thinking the exact same thing. And if you can share how you're getting there and how you're still in the struggle, but that if you don't quit, you win. I say that a lot. Other people will jump on that bandwagon with you, and not only will you help them, but I tell you, and I know you know this, when you share that story and you help people and you make a difference, man, what comes back to you from them helps you so much more. And it's just, I continue to learn and grow from every single group or person that I meet and share things with. And it's just, it just drives that connection. So I just think, use that adversity, use your tragedies. I mean, I don't shy. When I was in the 6th grade classroom, I can't walk in there and say, hey guys, I used to be an addict and an alcoholic, and I can't go into details with all that, but I can share aspects of that without telling the whole story. That really empowers and gets those kids to think, and then they'll start sharing stuff with me about how one kid's mom died. This was last year, how a kid was sharing with me how his mom died and no one even knew that. Or one kid was sharing how his mom moved out of state and how he has to stay with his dad and he misses mom so much. And it's just, and these kids will start sharing stories in class and start crying, and it connects everybody. And then, I mean, it's powerful. And then when they see that you're real and you care and you love them no matter what, and teaching them the content and getting to achieve those high standards of academic success and things like that are easy, because they'll go through fire for you. And so it's just, I would just really encourage your listeners to be authentic and vulnerable in how they can share their story, because in different situations you can share more or less. Like with my soccer team, I can share a lot and they know my whole story. Most of them have my book, and it's just, I can use those things. And that creates such a powerful connection that those guys have achieved such greatness this year that before the season started, they had no business even thinking they were going to do that. But it's just using those things to empower other people and to instill that hope and that belief and that fire in them that maybe has been burnt out. And so when that fire is alive in you, you got to share it. You got to give it away, and you got to be that light. Don't hide it. And your story is that light. And so share it.
Yeah, there's greatness in each of us, and it can come through in the story. And so that is so impactful. Sharing your story is a building block that can really help. We can help each other realize our greatest potential. So my last question for you today, and I know we agree on this one as well. I believe our students deserve excellence. How do you inspire others to show excellence and reach their full potential?
First thing is I push them to dream so big that people call you crazy. Uh, I think that's important. I mean, students and staff, they are going to rise to the standards of excellence that we set. If you set them for mediocrity, they're going to be mediocre. If you set them for a lot higher than they even believe they can attain, and you may even look at it and go, "Whoo, that's a big one," then you know they'll rise to those things. And if it's really really high and they get just right underneath it, it's still amazing. But you got to dream so big that they call you crazy. And another one is just one thing I always say is we before me. It's about the collective. It's about the group. It's not about you. It's about whatever your role is in your school, whatever your role is on your team, whatever your role is in your classroom, whatever your role is in your family, whatever that role is to benefit the group around you, is to benefit others. And then that comes back to you, and you'll find, I mean, all the things that I sought when I was an alcoholic, I found when I was able to start giving things away to other people. It came back to me. And it's like I didn't really understand what I wanted or needed until I started focusing on what I could do for other people. And that's another tool I learned through recovery, was that when I get all lost in my head and overthinking things, and it's just get out of my own, get out of myself and focus on others. And then what you need will come to you. And so, that we before me, is important. And so it's just setting those high standards of excellence, empowering them to be a part of the collective, and understanding that their role is so important for everybody else's success and not just their own. I mean, when they buy into that and they buy into that belief, it's amazing. And the last one is just the piece of accountability, which I think is so difficult for people because they don't want to be the bad guy. They don't want to, even with on like, and I know I've used this a lot today in this podcast, but with my soccer team, it's hard to get, good teams, the coaches hold them accountable. Great teams, the players do. And it's hard to get them to do that because they don't want to be the suck up, or they don't want to be the brown noser, or they don't, they don't want to come off in a way where they're not going to fit, or, whatever. But it's like, guys, it's not about that. It's not about you. It's not about how they look. Who cares how they look at you? If you care about the team and the collective and the goals and that those big dreams that we've set, you're going to hold them accountable because you love them. And so when you establish those relationships in love, and I mean, and I'm just going to say this, but there's so many programs out there, and it's like, it's, to me, they're all, it's full of fake authenticity and building relationships. It's all BS. Really build a relationship with someone, be vulnerable, share, come to get to know them, not just a little handshake, or not just, get to know your people. As administrator, spend time in the classroom with your teachers, go teach with them, co-teach, don't just be the gotcha guy. I mean, just really build those authentic relationships, because when you do that, those that you hold accountable will be receptive to it, and they know that you love them, and that's why you're doing it. And so, and I reiterate that with whether have kids here in my office as a school counselor, or with administrators or groups of staff or teams or whatever. Once they know that I love them, and I know I'm pushing them because I love them, because there's so much greatness within them, and they can be the greatest miracle in the world, then they don't always like it, but they know it's coming from a place of love. And so, that grit and that resilience and that perseverance that we want to see, it's so grounded and rooted in love. And I think we miss that sometimes. And it's just not dinging somebody because they're not meeting your standard. It's saying, hey, I think you can. I love you. I believe in you. I'll be your surrogate belief until you find your own. Let's go get it together. And so when you do that, and that accountability piece, I think is that biggest, it's so important, and we miss it so often.
Yeah. And I love everything you just said, and I really needed to hear that this week, Kip. So I appreciate you sharing your story. I completely agree with you that the greatest human need is that sense of connection and belonging. And you're doing great things out there. So keep up the great work. And why don't we end off today by you telling us a little bit about your book? I know your book came out, when was it, last summer?
I live in a struggle to strength. It's just
Mhm.
really, it's more of an autobiographical type story, but also those lessons and components of what I call our secret sauce. And we all have that. And it's all unique to each individual, but how the adversity and the obstacles and things that we face in life and those tragedies help us to kind of find those things. And it defines and develops those in us so that we can use them as educators to really empower and build relationships and do the things that we're really meant to do being in the field of education. And so Struggle to Strength, you can find it on my website. It's kipshubert.com. If you buy it on there, I can sign up for you and send it to you, or you can just go straight to Amazon. You get it probably faster, but same price. And so you can find it there. Struggle to Strength, again, is the title. And it's for educators. It was written for educators, but it really is impactful for anybody. I just think being able to understand your story, your journey, your struggles, and how, if you just stay the course, if you just don't quit, I remember having that gun in my mouth and just, I so wanted to pull the trigger, and I couldn't. And there was a reason for that, obviously, but I'm so glad I didn't have the courage to do it. And there's so many people I hurt with that. I mean, my oldest son, we still have a very strained relationship because he was the person I called to come. Oh man, to come and save me, and I should have been the one saving him, but it's just, that was the catalyst that led to my recovery too, in a way, because he called my parents the next day and said, "I'm not his parent. I can't do this." And, yeah. So, I can't ever fix that or go back and change that. However, I can use everything I've learned, and I know it doesn't make a difference for him, but I try to honor him with it and just make a difference for other people. And so I think this book um, will help people really come to grips with their own story. And although they've faced maybe some great tragedy and some great adversity, that they can use it for good, and they can find the strength in it, because there really is. And so today I give the book away more than I sell it. Don't care about the money. I know you just bought a bunch of them for your staff. I hope it's impactful for them, and I just try to share my story anywhere I can, so that other people can see that greatest miracle in them, and they
And
don't
Kip,
have to go to hell back to find theirs. So like I did.
Kip, I'm thankful that we were able to connect and our paths have crossed. Your story is extremely powerful, and just the level of vulnerability and authenticity that you bring with it, I think, is what makes it so powerful. As I said, I am thankful for you. I'm thankful you're here. I'm thankful you're doing this work. And I am certain that you are impacting many, many lives. If our listeners want to connect with you on social media, how can they do that?
Just look for it's under Kip Shubert Secret Sauce. I don't do TikTok or Snapchat stuff, whatever the other platform. That's too much for me. Some of my mentors have been like, "You've got to get on TikTok and do it." I was like, "I can't. I can barely keep up with myself, and much less another thing." So that's why I always tell the kids, get off of TikTok and Snapchat. You need to spend more time making real connection. But
human connection.
Look at those things. Look me up if you need anything. Holler at me. I'd love to come speak at your school, your district, your athletic department, whatever it may be. You just reach out to me and get me there. We'll figure out the details. So
we'll have to figure out the details and get you here
Yeah.
because, like you said, my staff's going to get that book. I know it's on its way, and so second quarter we'll end up handing them out to our staff. So I'm looking forward to that. So, Kip, I appreciate your time today, and just want my listeners to know that your story is inspiring and full of hope, as they have just witnessed. You can invite Kip into your school community, and together you will reach your staff, your students, and turn your struggles into strength. Again, Kip, thank you for coming on the show today, and I wish you well and success in everything you do.
I enjoyed it. I'm honored.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at teachbetter.com/podcasts, and we'll see you at the next episode.